First off, I just wanted to say thank you to AIGA, to Josue, and to Brett. Um, it's super, super cool that I get to do this. When I was in college and the first time I heard of AIGA, I was just fascinated by it and went to a whole bunch of different events that they were throwing. And when they would come to UTA, I made sure that, or the internal one, make sure that I participated in everything. And I've done workshops at the UTA division. So to be able to do it, outside of school it feels official now. It feels like something really, really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, and I'm excited to do this tonight. So a little bit about me. I graduated from UTA, and I think it was 2015. While I was in school, I was already freelancing quite a bit, and just quickly turned that into a job opportunity at Fellowship Church, where it sounds like, oh, you're just working at a church. It's a huge, huge church, and I got to work alongside some just amazing, amazing designers that I learned a whole bunch from, and so much. They were so good that I knew right away that I was never going to catch them, and I had to kind of get out from under their shadow. So I was lucky enough to land a job with the Dallas Cowboys, the merchandising side of it, and was designing graphics and T-shirts and apparel. Worked my way up through there. I ended up being the lead women's apparel designer, and then quickly, shortly after that, moved on to 8180, which is a company inside of the Cowboys, where I do marketing for AT&T, Whataburger, and Dr Pepper mostly. And then anything internally that we need, I'm the lead designer there. So I get to, I have my hands in pretty much everything that we're doing. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions about any of that, but other than that, I probably should share my screen, and let me see if I can get this going. See that?
Looks like it's showing up for me. Yep.
Perfect. So cool. I was telling Brett, like right before this, I had these like grand visions of talking about lettering, doing some examples, and then going into a whole piece and executing that piece, posting it on Instagram, and just kind of, showcasing it. But I ran through what I wanted to do last night and today, like 2 or 3 times, and there's no way I can fit that into an hour and a half. So what I want to do, and what we're going to do tonight, is just kind of talk about lettering, my process. I'm going to give some examples. We're going to talk about terminology. There's a lot of, in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of intro level stuff, but if you stick around, it'll get a little bit more intricate. And I think it's going to be just really, really beneficial for anybody that's trying to dive into this, anybody that's already doing this and trying to figure some stuff out. I'm going to share a couple of tips that took me months of kind of, toying with things to figure out, and I can explain it in a minute and really, really save you some headaches if this is something you're trying to get into. So let me see real quick. I started lettering on the iPad Pro like 3 years ago. I had already been lettering for about 2 years before that, 2.5 years before that. And I was using a Tombow pen, these Tombow brush pens. And if you look, they have 2 sides to them. There's one side just being the brush pen, and then the other side being this really fine tip. And so I wish I could say one of the first things I did, but one of the first things I figured out after a whole bunch of trial and error was where are these brushes that will mimic this? And this isn't by any means a Procreate tutorial, but I think it's really important to know what you're using. So under just the stock default brushes that you get with Procreate, there's a brush pen here. It's at the very bottom. And then there's another one called Monoline up here. I'm not going to be using anything but these 2 tonight. So if if you're at all trying to follow along, if you're recording this and watching this later, try to simplify that as much as I could. Again, trying to mimic the Tombow pen, just these two brushes made it super, super simple. So I'm going to go ahead and get into just a little bit of terminology. I lettered this, earlier today, and I think we'll come back to this word humble. I don't know why I landed on humble. I'm kind of on this little kick of working hard, staying humble. Like it's like kind of a theme I've been doing lately. But so I want to talk about like terminology, just so we're all on the same page going forward. And please feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions while I'm doing the lessons. If you want me to redo something, if I'm going too fast at all, please stop me. So right away, lettering isn't typography like in the traditional sense. It's a lot of really just drawing letters, but there's a lot of rules that are applicable and a lot of terminology that's really the same, but it's a lot more loose. So this baseline that I have down here at the bottom, can you see that? Let me see. Turn on this layer. Just gonna sketch real quick. So this baseline down here, I'm kind of loose with it. If you look really close, I'm not really touching it in many places. And to me, that's okay. That's kind of it adds a lot of personality to me when you're not so strict and so stiff with it. I like to be really loose and fluid when I'm doing my lettering. So I'm not really so concerned about being so precise of hitting that baseline every single time. Even the baseline I've established is loose in itself. The X height is the height of a lowercase letter. Same thing here. I probably only hit it once and I go over it again. All this is very intentional. It's very much trying to add personality to the lettering. And I would embrace it. I wouldn't spend too much time like trying to really perfect, hitting that baseline every time. When I first started lettering, those were some things that I was really strict on myself, and trying to be perfect with it really, really held me back. It wasn't until I kind of just started ignoring those things that I started to progress really, really quickly. I forget who told me this, but I saw somewhere it said typography isn't an arrangement of beautiful letters. Isn't an arrangement of beautiful letters. Isn't beautiful letters. It's an arrangement of beautiful letters. So a beautiful arrangement of letters. I'm so sorry I messed that up. Meaning don't stress over each letter. There's nothing special about this M other than it's following an upstroke downstroke rule. There's nothing special about the B other than what I'm about to show you here in a second. So a little bit more on terminology. A downstroke is exactly what it sounds like, just when your pen is going down. Make sure I'm on the right layer here. So when your pen is going down, so here's how I'm drawing each one of these letters. An upstroke is the exact opposite when you're going up with the pen. And what else do we have here? A terminal is the entrance of a letter or the exit of a letter. So here being the entrance and this one being the exit. And then just so we address it, this is a flourish is what I would be calling a flourish. So this down here, I usually add these just for weight, just for balance. And that's pretty much the gist of the structures of the letter, of each letter. So what I wanted to do next was go into actually drawing these letters. So again, just a calligraphy brush, the brush pen. I like to put my setting just depending on how big my file is. This one is, I think it's 3,000 by 3,000. It's like a perfect square for Instagram. So I like to put my brush, I think it's right around 18%. And before we get that started, Apologize for my sloppy handwriting. Ironically, like my handwriting is horrible. Here. Really quick, I turn my streamline all the way up. I don't mess with any other settings here in Procreate. Jitter, fall off. Honestly, I don't even know what they do. I just mess with streamline. When I first started, I really tried hard to turn my streamline down, and the streamline really controls when you're on curves of pen. And I don't know, I had this pride of like wanting to be really good without the streamline. there's really no point to that. You don't get any extra points for having your streamline turned down. So I turn mine all the way up now. So I want to practice or just show you how to practice downstrokes. I'm going to do a couple and then explain what I'm doing. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know, and hopefully Jose or Brett will check that box for me. Honestly, this is a little weird just talking and getting no response, but it's all good. So downstrokes is all about the pressure. So the pencil on the iPad on the Procreate is really, really amazing how it responds to pressure. If you just tap it, it gives you that, hopefully you could see that really light. I'm barely tapping the screen. And the harder you press on it, you know, the thicker the stroke will be. So on a scale of 1 to 5, we'll call that first one I did a 1, and that last one I did a 5. So I like to do, when I'm entering my terminal, I start off with the 1, and I go to about a 3 pretty quickly. That one's horrible. And stay at that 3 and then go down to a 1, speaking pressure-wise. So 1, 2, 3, back to a 1 to taper off to establish that terminal that's here and here. So the downstrokes are all about the pressure. Workshops in person, we would spend a good 5-7 minutes just doing downstrokes. And what that really does is start to establish muscle memory. And if you get, you know, control of that pressure, that, you know, 1 to 3 transition that I'm talking about, you really start to be able to have full control over whether it's a marker or the Apple Pencil.
So I have just a question for you as you're working on these downstrokes. Before you know, Apple Pencil, Procreate came out, what were some of the tools that you were using prior to that to do your lettering, and how did that change at all as you entered into having this tool, these new abilities, you know, at your?
So like I said earlier, I was really using the Tombow brush, and believe it or not, like Crayola washable markers, those are amazing. That chisel is on the Crayola is so strong, and it comes to a really fine point. So when you would hold the marker up just straight up, it would give this really, really fine point. But when you held it at an angle and put that 3-4 pressure on it, it got really, really thick like this, and then you would transition really thin. So I would say, yeah, those two, a Tombow and a Crayola washable. That sounds kind of funny, but I prefer the Crayola washable over even the Tombow. And I would then scan that in, vectorize it, and, you know, go about working on it, putting effects on it. But now with the iPad, man, I haven't touched a marker in a long, long time. I had to go dig this one up out of my garage. Which, I don't know, it may be kind of sad, but I also think it's super, super cool. It streamlined my process. I can almost finish a complete project on my iPad now, which is amazing. And, you know, work at my dinner table or wherever I'm at, you know, before the pandemic, in a coffee shop, wherever, and really finish a project just off my iPad, which is amazing. So other than downstroke, there's also, well, I think I could probably fit it on that page. Upstroke is a little. So then upstrokes. My bad. So an upstroke is a 1 pressure-wise, a 1 all the way up. And it's just coming at like an upslope. This one, when I would do workshops, people would spend the least amount of time on. This one's probably the easiest to master, is an upstroke. I'll do just a couple more and just talk about like the terminal entering at a 1 and trying to maintain that 1. And when I made the comment earlier about like typography and lettering being different, I think, kind of just speaking a little bit more to that, and also showing like the Tombow pen, how it has 2 ends on it. Like the point of that being, I use that second end, this really fine tip, to clean up a lot of my work. So, I'm creating downstrokes and upstrokes, and then I'm going back with that fine tip and just cleaning up everything. So I don't know. I think in that way, it's not like traditional calligraphy or typography. It's more like drawing. It's really, it's a lot of drawing to me. It's just drawing letters. So I'll move on from upstroke. I think, you guys get the gist of that. I think it's transitions. So from a downstroke to an upstroke. So I think I was calling those combinations. So this is kind of honestly the most difficult thing about lettering. And this is where, you probably spend the most time doing. So it's doing that downstroke and then transitioning that pressure from 1 to 3 to 1 and then holding that 1 up is not, honestly, it's not an easy thing to do. But with practice, it starts to become muscle memory. I feel like I'm getting even a little bit better at this right now. And then the reverse, which is an upstroke to a downstroke. 1, 2, 3. And we'll go ahead and go back up just for the sake of time. So it's 1, 3, 1, up. There's also this like an emphasis on the speed you're going. I took a class one time with Don Smith, who's a sign painter. He's an amazing sign painter. And him and I did a project one time together. But like one of the things he said about me that he did not like about my lettering was that I go so slow. He said, if you speed up, you'd be so much better. So when he said that, I started speeding up. I started trying. You lose control a little bit, but it really does make your letters and your transitions a lot smoother.
I have a question from one of our attendees here. They asked, what do you prefer, Wacom or iPad Pro? And what about Illustrator as opposed to Procreate?
So I prefer, if we're speaking about lettering, I prefer the iPad Pro over anything, even over like a pencil and paper. The Wacom I love for Photoshop. When I'm doing just traditional work, I use the Wacom for that, or used to. I really haven't since we've been in the pandemic. I've just been using the mouse. And then Illustrator, man, I love a mouse for Illustrator. I do a lot of my lettering. I'll convert, what I do on the iPad, with Vector. That's a whole other class. I've taught a class on that as well at UTA. It's a whole nother 2-hour class. But yeah, I use a mouse for that, and just translating this stuff, transferring it from here to Illustrator, and then just tracing it. Hope that answered the question.
Awesome.
Yeah, this one's really good here. I feel like that's really smooth.
Yeah, it looks really
and
nice.
So after that quick lesson, we go back and look at the word humble. I don't know if I spoke to the slant. So 70-degree slant is kind of like an eyeball test, but that's kind of where I do. If the more aggressive the slant, the more aggressive the word is going to look. And if you're trying to make it look a little bit more friendly, you do more of an upright, so less of a slant. I just did a mural, and I did like more of a straight up and down lettering style for that, just so, because it was a Christmas mural, it needs to look more friendly. But let me go to brush pen now. So I'm going to letter this just kind of like side by side with just the upstroke, downstroke techniques we were just talking about. So this might be a little rough because I cleaned up that humble, because why not? Downstroke, taper, downstroke, taper.
So when you first started, how much time did you spend practicing, and was that a lot of that like after work, between other jobs, either freelance or your full-time job?
Man, so when I first started lettering, I was at a job where I was working as a project draftsman, so on AutoCAD at a structural engineering firm. I hated what I was doing. I love the people there, but I hated what I was doing. I was basically just drawing blueprints based off of the engineer, sketches, and it was maddening. And I got really good at it. I was doing it for quite a while, and so I had a lot of dead time. So I would spend. This is horrible, but I remember one day I didn't do any work at all. All I did was practice lettering. So it was a lot of dead time and a lot of me just trying to figure this out. But I would say, to answer your question, I spend hours, man, every day. Any break I got, any opportunity I got to letter, I would. And that first year when I got into it, it was right around the time Instagram. It was before Instagram was huge. It was when it was just getting going. I was posting every single day to Instagram, and wasn't getting many followers or many likes, but just like the little likes I would get, I remember one time getting like 14 likes, where it turns from like having a list of all the names to 11 likes and just one person liked. I remember the first time that happened to me on my lettering, I was so excited. But yeah, to answer your question, I did this every day, like for 365 days. I did it every single day, and it wasn't until like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months into it where I got pretty good at it.
I have a question on the strokes here. When you're going from a 1 to 3 stroke, how do you get a consistent color, I guess, tone? It says that there shows washed out at the 1.
That's kind of the speed. I would say I would do that a little faster. If you're coming washed in, you're probably going too slow. You see how slow, how washed out that looks. So I would go a little faster. And maybe it's more like a 1.5, 2. So add just a little bit of pressure to that. Uh-oh, here we go. So you can see, I was probably talking through that, but I mean, you can really identify, not this one, but this one, the upstrokes and downstrokes here. you're thinking about, get to the right brush, get red, the transition, you're 1 here, you're a 3 here. So 2 has to happen at some point, right? 2 is around here, but it happens very, very fast. Same thing down here. You're going from the 3, 2, 1. I hope, I think that's making sense. I hope it makes sense. That was really insightful for me when we came up. I did a lettering class with Arturo Don Juan, who is, he taught me a lot about lettering. He's a graffiti artist from Sour Grapes, like from Dallas, Sour Grapes. And him and I would teach classes at their studio. And I would always just say, press harder, or don't press so hard. And he came up with that 1 through 5 system. And I feel like it was just a better way of communicating. I think it makes sense. Hopefully it does. So you can see here, if you compare these 2 letters, these 2 words, I obviously came back and cleaned up that top one, right? Like it looked exactly like this. I then went through and grabbed, we're going to use, like I said, just a monoline. And I turned this all the way down. It doesn't get very big to begin with, but I turned it all the way down. And then make sure I'm on the right layer too. And then begin to just clean it up. So that pen is really providing the foundation for your letters. But then I go through and clean it up. And that's why I say it's different than calligraphy. It's different than, I guess it's typography. I saw Seiji was on y'all's list. And I think I remember Seiji telling me it's not typography. Seiji he could get mean sometimes. So he would call it lettering. And that's why I started calling it lettering. I don't want to go through and spend time in cleaning all this up, obviously, especially I have a clean version. I just wanted to make that point, like utilizing pretty much everything at your disposal when it comes to working digitally. But and also at the same time trying to simulate, this Tombow pen.
When you're doing your work, what do you find the most challenging part during for your process? What's the most challenging part for you?
Man, lately it's been like I've been really trying to challenge myself. I haven't been posting as much, but I've been really trying to focus on quality. Whereas before I was trying to just get a whole bunch of stuff out and trying to gain notoriety and attention. So I would say it's like trying not to do the same thing over and over, but also not shying away from what works. So that balance of new and just quality, man. I've been trying to push myself, even at work. I've been trying to just get to that next level of quality. So I've been trying to refine everything I'm doing. Like I'm looking at these letters and I guess, they're clean, but there's still, you see that little hump right there. So I've been trying to really refine everything and take the time to do that. That's been the most challenging thing for me because like I said, I'm coming from posting every single day to trying to slow down. I think that's been the most challenging for me is to slow down. That being said, I have a point that I'm going to make a little later. When it comes to Instagram, man, you don't have to sweat it too much. Instagram's screen is so small. Really, you're just trying to catch somebody's eye, and then they're going to move on. No matter if you spend 3 or 4 hours working on your piece, they're going to look at it for 4 seconds max and double tap or not. And
we have another question from attendees asking, because you're cleaning it up right now with the monoline brush, and they're asking if it was maybe faster, easier to kind of take that into Illustrator and do that there, or do you prefer just finishing or getting it as close as possible on your Procreate?
You can. For me, I think I'd rather do it here, just because you're switching over. And I saw Illustrator just came out on the iPad, so maybe in the future I'll do that. But I don't like switching over to desktop and then switching back to Procreate. I just want to do it all here. So yeah, I prefer just to keep it all in one place as much as I can. So I guess we'll go ahead and move on to let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, we'll move on to the next portion. So what I wanted to do, like I said, I wanted to complete like a whole piece. We don't have time for that. So what we are going to do is I began to set up this. I downloaded this image off of Unsplash, and I think it came like this, and I added just a little bit of color to it, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then I drew the word "work hard" over it, and just lettered. Hopefully you can see the upstroke, downstrokes to it. And then I wanted to go through like how I highlight, add depth, add shadows to this. So I'm going to walk through that, and again, feel free to stop me at any point. So the first thing I do is I turn on alpha lock, and what that does is it locks all the pixels that aren't used. So really, if I turn this red, all I can draw on now is just what's in there. So I'll change this color to white, which is just on my color panel, and then fill this white with fill layer here, and then duplicate it. Active with just a really light gray, and I'll show you why here in a second. So now it's filled. And again, keep in mind we have the white underneath. So if I turn this on and off, the white underneath will show. So then I create a layer mask and go back to my monoline brush. And on the mask, if you're coloring with black, hope like mostly all designers know this, but if you're coloring with black, it's removing. So it's revealing what's underneath, which is the white. And if you're coloring with white, it'll just add. And since all these are accounted for, we're not adding anything. So let's go back to black. And so with this piece, I want to add highlights to this, right? It's the first step. I'm going to add highlights. I'm going to add shadows. I'm going to add texture to it. So adding highlights, the first thing I do is where's the light coming from this background picture? This arm, the shadow is below it. So that light's probably coming from the top. So I'll then start adding highlights by removing that gray layer, which the gray layer, it might be a little dark, but it's fine for now. So with the monoline brush, I'll go through and start removing. There. The cool thing about the iPad is you zoom in as close as you want. Yep. Just add it back in with the white. Can also clean it up as well. I'm not going to go through this whole word, I promise. I have another one filled in already, but I definitely wanted to take some time and work through this. There's a couple of situations like this one I'm running up on right now, where this upstroke is then, behind this crossbar or in front, whichever one you want. I want it behind this crossbar here. So I'll add this highlight and just be really free with how I'm going to add it. Not worried about that overlap on the back on the upstroke. Maybe that's too much. And then I'll go through and clean it up with the white and just add back that mask there. Then you can start to see that depth is being created. And here's another interesting one here, like what happens in this flat area, right? So you have to then start to establish that.
So when you're working on a piece, do you establish color ahead of time? Do you know what, you have an idea what you're going to do or create as far as like color palettes?
I don't, man. I don't. And honestly, color is something I struggle with. Maybe I should have said that when you said what was the most challenging. I really struggle with color. Oftentimes, lately I've been doing like kind of like these colors, these pastel colors. I'm really close friends. Luckily, I'm really close friends with Magdiel Lopez, who's an amazing, amazing designer. And lately I've been really just inspired by his work and his color palettes. So, I'll come up with something like that. I didn't send this to him, but I'll come up with something and send it to him and be like, what's wrong with this color? And he'll hook it up, like tell me what to do, what I'm doing wrong. Or if I don't want to bother him, I'll just go pull up one of his posters and just copy whatever he did. Which if you're doing something totally different, I think it's fine to copy a color scheme.
What were some other, or I guess when you first got into lettering, what were some people that you were inspired by as you were getting into it? Or where did you feel like you pulled most of your inspiration from?
So Don Juan, who I mentioned earlier, who's in Sour Grapes, he's from Dallas, he's local. I was lucky enough to meet him like right when I started lettering. He was a barber and I knew where he was working. I was following him on Instagram. So I was like, well, I'm gonna go get my haircut. I'm gonna take my backpack with all my stuff. I'm gonna show him what I'm doing and see if he's cool enough to help me out. And he was. So we became friends then. So I followed Arturo. This guy from Germany. Obviously, I've never met him, but his name is Tim Bonton. He goes by that. His handle is Beach de Vliet, which I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that right. But if you look at his style, man, you can tell 100% I'm inspired by him. And that's something I kind of wanted to talk about too, like inspiration versus copying. In the beginning, I was straight up copying him. But that was right around the time I was in college and in Pauline's class, and she showed us this documentary by Eric Speakerman. And he talked about inspiration versus copying. He said if you're working on something and you're looking at a reference while you're working on it, and you're copying it. But if you look at something, study it, put it away, and then start working and don't reference back to it, and you're just going off of memory, that's inspiration. So when I heard that, that really like hit home because I knew I was copying and I wasn't proud of it. So I stopped. I stopped looking at his stuff. I would come across it on Instagram and stuff, but I stopped looking at anybody's work while I was working. And I haven't ever since then. I don't look at anyone's work while I'm working. Kind of developed my style because I had nothing to reference it to. And so I knew, like, I was just making my own decisions, like, is this good or not? And that's how I developed my style. And people asked me before, like, how'd you come upon your style? And that's 100% how I did it. Let's just stop referencing stuff. Stop copying stuff, I should say.
So what are some things now that inspire
Shame of copying
you
in the beginning.
Yeah. What are some things now that inspire you to make a new piece? Like, is there anything where you see something, you're like, this, I need to do this now?
Man, I'm inspired by, like, I already talked about like Magdiel, but I'm inspired by people that are doing like really, really dope stuff. Like I'm inspired by doing things on a big scale. I'm inspired by people interacting with your work. So when I see someone who does something, Don Smith, I referenced him already, man, he's an OG, he's older, and he does all these really, really dope projects. And, you know, that's what inspires me, like creating work that that get a reaction out of people. Just seeing people do that makes me like it fires me up. When I hang out with Magdiel, I always walk away like, you know, he shows me what he's working on, or he says something that really sparks me. And like I said, whenever I hang out with him, it's guaranteed, like I got an Instagram post at least coming real soon. It's been conversations inspiring me too.
Nice.
I'm done with the highlights here. Yeah, I would say I'm done with the highlights. Then I'm gonna add some shadows real quick. That went a little faster than I thought. This is good. Shadows. I'll start a new layer. Then I'll go down to my first layer, which is probably a better way to do this. With clipping masks weren't around when Procreate first came out, but so this is how I learned to do it, and I stuck to this. So I'll go to my alpha lock layer, my first one, and hit select. So now I'm only able to draw on that, but I am able to move layers. So I go up to that new layer that I create, my color black. Oh, I guess here's where I'm using a different brush. Then I'll go down to airbrushing, soft brush, turn my opacity down just to add in the shadows. I'm not sure yet what I'm doing here, but the shadow, because these two letters are touching. So I'll just add like an opportunity to shadow here. I know that the light's coming here. Let me turn down my brush size. I'll go back and clean this up so I can be a little loose with it. Upstroke is going behind this downstroke. So I'll shade there. Here I got to make a decision, right? What's happening? So I'm going to say these two strokes are going behind the upstroke as well. That downstroke, and it starts early. So I'll put that there. The D, I mean, I could probably get away with no shadows, but I don't want something there. If you want to be bold, you can erase here, or you can create a layer mask. I'll create a layer mask just because it's probably the better way to do it. And then go back to monoline. You can see a little bit of hand skill here. Let's say the O is in front, so it's not very common. It's in front of the W. Zoom.
We have another question from one of our audience members. So, like, what inspired you to do lettering projects? Like, what got you started?
Man, I had always been into letters. Like when I was a kid, my uncle was a tattoo artist, and he was amazing at script letters. But you know, he did it professionally. My uncle would do tattoos on the side, man, which is kind of hardcore, but it's just the truth. So I'd always been into letters, but never connected the dots that this could be a profession, right? Well, when I was in school and college, let me stop this. This button up here, that this was highlighted. And And the letters, I mean, the shadows look a little harsh, so we can turn down the opacity on this layer. You can turn it all the way down as much as you want. They don't look that harsh, so I'm going to turn them down to about 75. The D is kind of sticking out right here. So what I do in a situation like that, I'll just turn on soft airbrush on the erase and turn my opacity all the way down. Not all the way down, let's say 40. Make the brush bigger than the spot and just start tapping it. It'll lighten it up a bit and kind of control that. It doesn't, you can see it doesn't stick out as much anymore. I'm back to how I got into it, man. So with that, my uncle, I've always kind of been into it. And then when I was in college, we watched this documentary. I forget the lettering artist's name, but I was in a visual identity class and they showed this lettering documentary, this guy, documentary of the guy. And I didn't think he was very good. I thought he was like really, really average lettering. And everybody in the class, even like people that I looked up to and even the professor, they were like blown away by him. And I was like, man, I could do that. I know I could do that. If they're impressed by that, like I need to get into that because I was trying to separate myself. I felt like I was just an average designer. I was trying to really have something that would make me stand out. And sounds crappy, man, but that's what inspired me. This guy who I wasn't very impressed by. And I started diving in, and that was the semester that I started lettering and did my first lettering on a project. And obviously I was posting on Instagram and started posting that project on Instagram and got a whole bunch of feedback and just likes and notoriety. I think I got like the most likes off of that than anything I had ever done. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. We have this top layer, we have the shadows, we have the highlights. I think it's looking pretty good. But it also looks flat, right? Like this, the letters look. So while I'm on my layer mask, I guess I totally lied because I'm gonna use another brush here. Work hard, talking about working in hard. So I'll use this industrial brush, concrete block, and just to add some texture to that. And I'll turn down the opacity just a little bit. I'll zoom in so we can see this. Oh, it's working. Yeah, you can start to, not bad, I was in the wrong layer. You get to this layer here. Yeah, you can start to see it's probably a little big. Just that soft little texture that's added there goes a long way. It's so much better than just having a flat surface. And if we're talking pressure, I'm probably putting a 1-2 pressure on this brush because this brush still is, that's a 5 right there. Look how harsh that looks. Just want a very subtle texture on that. The cool thing is this layer is underneath the shadow layer. So that the shadow is then applied to that texture as well. That was like a happy accident that I learned. And then lastly, just to add even more depth, I go to touch up and the noise brush. Make this a little bigger. And just add a little noise to it. And the purpose of this again is just to add some depth to the letters. I think that's probably good. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm done with the letters. Are we good on time? What time is it?
And we're at 7:30 right now.
Okay. So how much time do we have left? 30 minutes?
Yeah, I'd say 40 minutes, somewhere around there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to try to do this. So I want to edit this. I want these letters to interact with this hand, right? This part, this W to be behind it, the O to be behind it. It'd be really cool if this R went underneath and then wrapped around. I think that would be cool. But we have all these layers. So what I'm going to do is select them, group them, and then duplicate that group. Just in case I screw up, I have everything underneath. So I'll turn off that bottom group, expand this. And then what I'm doing, I know you probably can't see it, but I'm pinching all these layers together and closing them. So now this is just one layer. Everything we're looking at is one layer. Then I'll turn down the opacity. About this high. Add a layering mask.
What are you clicking when you pull up that little contextual menu with the masking and stuff like that?
I'm clicking on that white box that's
Okay.
Right next to layer mask and work. So I click on that and that pops up.
Cool.
So back to layer mask, and I want to make sure that I'm on monoline. And like I said, I want the upstroke from the A and the R to go behind the hand. So I'll start to remove that. You can zoom in as much as you want. That's a really good thing about Procreate. Looks like I went 1 pixel over. And this makes it look really super clean. So all this upstroke is behind. Gets a little tricky here. What else do I want to happen? Ideally, I would want this A to go behind the flower, but I think that's a little too much. I think it might be not easy to read. It might look like a U, right? If we cut off the whole top of the A. So I'm going to leave the A alone just for legibility. But this lucky spot right here, this little petal that goes over the H. And then, like I said before, the W will go behind the hand. And then I think, Josue, you asked earlier, like if I knew what I was doing. I knew this one because obviously I did this earlier today or last night. But when I'm picking out a photo on Unsplash, I then draw over it, and you don't know what you're going to get really. And that's kind of fun, And like I said right here, we got lucky with this part that goes underneath. Those little details like that, man, elevate the quality of the piece. Let me delete all this stuff. Actually, I'm not deleting it. I'm doing a layer mask. Okay, so let's turn the opacity back on and look at it. So you can see it's kind of behind it now, but it still looks flat. So we need some shadows. So again, I'll just selecting. The tricky part, the unfortunate part about this is it's selecting everything that's on this layer here. I could squeeze these two together or duplicate this group. Maybe I'll do that. let's do that. Let's duplicate this group, turn this off, and then I'm squeezing these all together, selecting this, adding a new layer, and then I'm going to go back to my airbrush. And it retained my, if you look on the left-hand side, my opacity settings. If you go back to your brush, it keeps that same setting, which is amazing because now my settings will match the shadows that I placed on my letters earlier. I don't have to worry about like getting that accurate anymore. So now I have just the letter selected and I want to add shadow to it. So I'll then add this back shadow here. It makes a huge difference. And even though the light is coming from the top, I'm still going to add a shadow here just for depth. And that goes a long way. This little piece that we did here.
So one question that comes up with either designers, illustrators, people who do like lettering artists is it better to kind of be good at different styles or just kind of find what works for you and kind of develop your own style that's kind of just you that people know you from?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to do, man. If I think there's benefits in both. For me, a while back, I guess a long time ago, I was really hard on myself for not knowing like coding and you know, all that side, like the UX side of design. But once I committed to this is what I want to focus my style on, I'm really passionate about brand identity. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to dive in as much as I do. You know, if I was trying to still learn coding and UX and all that stuff, there's no way I would be as good as I am at this stuff right now. I would be, you know, stretched thin. So I guess I would say it just depends on what you want to do. For me, it's focusing on one, maybe two things. I did a post on that on my story the other day. I came across a quote that said, like, be the shit at one to two things and not okay at everything. And that kind of spoke to me. So yeah, but that's my answer. I think it's okay to be okay at everything, but for me, I would say it's so right here, I'm noticing some spots like where the W goes over the arm. There's got to be a shadow there over the H. So we got to find where that's at, right? So going down here, I'm just going to add a layer. It looks like this layer is blank, but I don't want to take a risk and delete it. So I'm going to add a layer to the top of the background. So that would be this layer and this layer. This layer 24 is on top, so I would go back to airbrush. I think I'm already on it. And then just start to add in these shadows here. It's probably a little harsh. Turn that down just a bit.
What are some techniques or tips that you tell people that are learning about the shadow? I know you mentioned like find the light source and stuff like that, but is there any references or source material or things that you would point out to help people that have trouble identifying where the shadow should land with like complex, you know, objects and things that they're interacting with?
No, man. Unfortunately, I don't have any like. Oh, look, I missed a spot. I don't have any like a resource for that. I kind of just using my judgment, and I know there's been times where I'll post something and go back and look at it and be like, oh man, that was totally wrong. But you know, that's part of growing. So I would say, you know, all I'm really doing is I'm looking at my inspiration or my content and seeing where that lighting is coming from and just trying to mimic that, trying to match that. But yeah, I don't have any resources offhand. I think this is pretty close. I think the last thing I want to do is add a shadow from the letters, which is, but I'm going to just do it manually just because that's what we've been doing. So I'll probably turn this brush up a little bit, because if you look at the shadow, it's pretty wide. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit. And I'm being kind of loose with it, just trying to hit every spot. I think I already did that part. So yeah, I'm trying to do my best to match this, which just looks a little heavy. I can turn down the a little bit more there. And then I think on my letters, my own.
You mentioned earlier about doing a mural you were working on not too long ago. What does your process look like when going, like getting to the point of building out that mural? Like how do you start, and where do you finish?
So usually when I'm doing a mural, people will, someone will hit me up with, the wall, the predetermined space, and they'll have the phrase. I have pretty much everything ready to go for me, and they're coming to me for my style, right? They want what I'm doing on their space. So I'll have them take a photo of the space, send it to me. I'll then open that in Procreate, and I'll just literally draw right over it. With this one that I just did at Fiction Coffee, I did that process, drew over it, but really wanted like these clean, straight single weight lines, like a monoline. So I then took that sketch. I can show that to you real quick. So I took this sketch. This is actually vectorized. So I took, you can see how, this was the original, but I didn't like the weight of it. I wanted it to be monolined. More like that. So I took this into Illustrator, and then these are all vector point, like these are paths, so you can see how clean these lines look. And the only reason I pulled this back into Procreate was just to post it on Instagram. But in Illustrator, obviously you can just add stroke weight to it. And so I just, messed with it until it got to where I wanted it to be, the weight of it. And then we project it onto the wall. So last night we went to Fiction Coffee and projected that work that I just showed you onto the wall, and traced it with just little paint markers. It's like chalk paint type of thing. And then today went out there and executed. We did this one with spray paint, just because the texture of the wall was so thick and like rough, and it was just ugly. And so it would have been not impossible. It was super time consuming to do it with a brush. So we just did it with the spray paint can, and it came out really, really good. Saved a lot of time. I think we did it in like an hour and 20 minutes. And so that was awesome. But yeah, that's the process. So Procreate, Illustrator, project it. spray paint. So this is probably, I probably wouldn't post this on Instagram yet. I feel like the background still needs some work, but lettering wise, this is something I would post. Maybe it's a little dark. Maybe I'll spend some time lightening it up. But as far as a workshop goes, I think this is a really good tutorial. What I wanted to do next, if I think we still have a few minutes, was just like go through the process on something else, like yeah, this one. So Procreate has this really cool feature, the time-lapse replay, where it'll just replay the process. You can see the upstroke, downstrokes real quick. This is me making it really thicker. Quickly just talk through. I want to stop there. See, like, this is really cool about Procreate. This made me way better. Those little lines that are under stay and humble, I used to struggle with what am I going to do in that space? And in Procreate, like, I get to just experiment and then move things around and try again without having to redraw stuff. That progressed me really fast. And then here I threw the picture in. If you look at this picture, it has those little ladybugs in it. And I just did the picker tool from Procreate and just painted over them pink. And then the color of the flesh, painted pink over her arms, and then just mimic the shadow that was already established. Started adding just some drip out of the flowers. This inspiration was straight from Magdiel, my friend Magdiel, who does amazing work. And he taught me this like liquefy effect. So I started doing that. Here's that process that we just did. Adding a shadow, adding all the little shadows. Yep. Lights some more texture onto the actual letter. Zoom in, see that, and then just putting some type on it.
That's awesome.
Maybe one more. Might be worth looking at this one. Man, here's something that I kind of wanted to talk about. So when you're designing for, I was talking earlier about like perfection, like really stunted me for a long time, like it really held me back. This is a really good example of just getting something out just to get it out, like for the moment. I posted this the day the election results were announced, and I had this idea already what I wanted to do, but then it looked like, oh man, this is about to be announced. And so I quickly threw this together, and had I like stewed over it and waited till I got this perfect, it wouldn't have got reposted on like Type Matters, a whole bunch of different like typography accounts, which got me a whole bunch of followers, which I got some more work out of it, which I feel like I'm doing this workshop because of it. Like this was the cover of the workshop. But if you look really close at this, it's really sloppy. Like look at this here. Like I didn't obsess over getting this out. Like some of this stuff, like again, like the letters, look how rough these letters are. That's not clean at all. I don't even know what brush I was using. Look how rough that is. That just to kind of emphasize, like perfection will hold you back. And sometimes just getting stuff out, like I felt like the energy of this piece was there. When I was at this point, I was like, it's there. This is ready to go. I might have missed the window if I would have obsessed over clipping this flower in the right way and adding the shadow and doing things like that. And we can watch the time-lapse replay. I think I did this pretty quickly. I just downloaded this one flower from Unsplash, clipped it out. Just copied that flower over and over, or those flowers, drew over it. You can see how really, really rough this is. Spent some time cleaning it up, but not much. I was sitting on my couch doing this and just really, really wanting to get it out.
That's awesome.
Process that I just showed you. Cool.
Someone asked a question from I think the earlier piece that you had up. How are you doing the drips and the liquefy effect in here?
Let me turn off these letters. So here's the photo, right? You zoom into this. It's a little tricky. Like if you notice, I did the liquefy effect on the edges only, and I'll show you why. If you go up to here, you see I'm clicking this button up here, and you go down this menu here, and it's defaulted to this push setting versus twirl. So I'm on push, and how big do you want your size to be? And it defaults to, or I think it's preset to this airbrush, soft brush. So I'll put it about 30. And then the pressure, I'll mess with this a little bit, but it looks like this saved my last one. The momentum you want really high, and momentum meaning like how much is this going to push the pixels? And so then size is probably way too big. I want it like this big. And then you just go down and start pushing it. And push it even more, and it starts to taper. And do it again. The problem happens, which I had to get creative. I just figured this out. Probably not brave enough to do it in front of an audience, but if I wanted to get this petal right here to liquefy onto this, I start pushing this down, well, it starts to move everything, and that's not realistic, right? So what I started doing was clipping this out, isolating it, and just copying up just this one petal, and then I would then liquefy that. But yeah, that's the process for that. It's really simple, man.
Then another question, somebody said they're using the paid app of Procreate. They said it looked like there might be more options in your brush library. Is there any additional extensions or anything like that you added to that, or are they just maybe hidden in a deeper part of the application?
No, I do have. Like I said, I took a class with Ryan Hamrick from Austin, and he gave us these brushes. This was before I had an iPad. I took this class, but he gave us a download to these brushes. So I think this is the only special one I have is the Hamrick brushes. I bought like these over here, these grids, but I don't use them. So I think they were like $10 for these grid banners. But yeah, if man, I was talking earlier about the Crayola washable. He created this washable brush that I'm on right now. Obviously, he's a fan of it too, and it mimics the Crayola washable perfect. So if you hold it straight up, what layer am I on? So it's like thick to thin. Look how, man, I'm not even trying very hard. So if you go to his website and just Google Ryan Hamrick, I think it's like $10 for these brushes. But man, honestly, that's all I have, unless you guys have any more questions or comments or anything. It's about the gist of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, we had one other question that came through here a minute ago. Can you export from Procreate to Illustrator?
Let's see. You can export from Procreate to PSD because it's pixel based, but it's not going to vectorize it for you. So what I do is I export as a JPEG or PG, and then I drop it into Illustrator. But here's your sharing options here. PDF, PNG, PSD. But when you take it into into Photoshop, it layers everything out for you. Procreate and Photoshop talk to each other really, really well.
So one thing before we also got started, you mentioned a good word to start with was, I think, aluminum. Can you tell us, kind of walk us through that, or tell us why that's kind of a word that you keyed on that would help somebody who's starting?
Yeah, my bad. I thought I did that. Let me open this. And yeah, that's a really good one. My bad. Turn these off. So go back to calligraphy brush pen. So aluminum, that word is sounds intimidating, but all it is, other than the A, it's nothing but an upstroke and downstroke. And I'll show you what I mean. So after the A, which itself is a monoline, is upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Another good point is I lift my pen after each transition. So if I'm done with this, maybe the A was a bad example to start with, but downstroke to upstroke, that connection I showed, I lift my pen. A lot of people want to treat script like it's cursive and keep your pen on the whole time. That's not what it is. So aluminum, L, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Another good thing about Procreate is move it over. Yeah. So aluminum is just like I just showed, a whole bunch of upstrokes and downstrokes. So it's a really, really good word to practice with.
Like is there any one particular, like what would be one thing that you would recommend people do that want to take their, if they're, you know, doing lettering as a hobby and want to make it more into a career, what is one thing you think they should focus on?
Man, what I found, like by teaching, is that a lot of people think, you know, once they take this class or you know, a real life class, that think they're going to be able to do this right off the bat. It's and to me, that's not being serious. That's not being realistic. So, you know, what I would do is be serious about it. Like it's not, if it's not a hobby anymore. If you're trying to go from a hobby to real life, it's not a hobby anymore. It's now work, and you need to take it serious. You need to do it every single day. Yeah, there was a good 2 years where I did it every single day. And I think that first year I only missed 5 days. That second year I missed less than a dozen days. So I would say that, man, take it serious. It's not a hobby anymore. This is serious. And Instagram is fun, and getting likes and getting featured, all that's fun. But it's also real. You know, this pays my bills. And this has opened a whole bunch of doors for me. The Cowboys 100% hired me for my lettering skills. Then from there, I was able to utilize, you know, my education, my passion, and you know, capitalize off of some opportunities and doors that open for me. But yeah, man, I would just say take it serious. It's fun, but it's super serious, man. To be good at it.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I guess one final question from me is, 'cause lately I've been seeing on your Instagram just new ways of you kind of taking your lettering further, whether that's murals or I think today I saw even more like something more like 3D work with it. So how do you see, like, are you always trying to find new ways to kind of push that lettering? Or?
I would say for sure that 3D thing kind of fell in my lap. The last post I did, that post, the one that said try really hard. I stewed over that post for like 2 or 3 days. I didn't, like, I already had the lettering done. I can open that up while we talk about it. This one right here. I already had this lettering done to the point to like just the letters, but I didn't know what effect I wanted to do on it yet. I didn't know I was going to do this triple line effect to it. But once I did, I put it out, and then I was like, man, you know, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. I want to, like, I went and copied somebody's hashtags, and this one kind of not blew up. I'm not doing numbers on Instagram by any means, but for my standards, this one did really, really well. And I got hit up by a whole bunch of different people that wanted to use it. And this one guy who, I don't know exactly what he's doing, doesn't have many followers. He only has like 200 followers, but he works for, like, he's doing work for Star Wars and for like Target, sent him a whole bunch of stuff. He has all these machines. And he was like, I really love your lettering. Can I print this out for my daughter on this 3D printer? And he was like, I'll give you one if you let me do that. And I was like, absolutely. So I vectorized this for him and sent it to him. So that one kind of fell in my lap. But yeah, man, I'm trying to do more murals, because murals, honestly, don't pay very well, but they give you a lot of exposure. And then again, my friend Magdiel, we're working on this like augmented reality, or like whatever that's called, the augmented stuff for the side of this building. I forget where this building is at in Dallas. So I want to really try to perfect that. I want to do the augmented stuff on my iPad, and that's how I got the idea for that change like that's popping out. Like, I really want to dig into that. So yeah, I'm really trying to push myself. I say this year's about to end, but I'm really trying to push myself into not. I took a break for a little bit, and I'm out of that funk, and I'm loving it, man. Like, I'm super happy to do this today. Was thankful for that mural. I just want to keep rolling, you know, and just doing fun stuff.
That's awesome. Another question we have from the audience here. As a designer, how do you handle your stress during the super busy times?
I try to remind myself, like, no one's gonna die. I'm not a doctor. I'm not doing anything where anybody's life depends on what I'm doing. I try to like see the big picture. I'm really thankful to have like my family, my wife, and my kids that I mean, you see, I'm sitting here at home, and honestly, we have my niece and nephew over tonight. They're 2 and 1, and no one's come to bother me. They're really super supportive. So I try to put all that into perspective, right? Like, what if my wife wasn't cool about all this? What if my kids didn't know how to act when I was busy? But they do, and I'm very thankful for that. And so I try to put things into perspective a bit. And I'm thankful that there's a lot of things that are going on with me right now this year that I've prayed for. You know, I wanted this position at work last year, and I have it now. Whole bunch of other things I can ramble off, but try to just put things into perspective, man. I'm not, you know, if I do fail, no one's gonna be in harm. I might get in trouble, I might lose an opportunity or whatnot, but my bills are gonna be paid, and everybody's gonna be safe. So that's how I do it. It's all that being said, it's not easy. It's still tough. I was stressed over this. I stressed over a project I was working on earlier today, but it's stressful, man. And one of my friends told me, this is what we signed up for. You know, if you're a graphic designer, people expect you. It's almost an unappreciated profession. People think just because you can have an opinion on graphic design doesn't mean you should, right? Like, if you don't know how to do the process, I feel like it's cool to voice your opinion and all that, but it doesn't mean that I have to take that opinion and implement it into my work. But it's what we signed up for, and I'm happy. Like I said, I was a draftsman for so long, and I was miserable. Now I get to do what I love every single day. So yeah, that's my answer. Sorry, I was long-winded.
Oh, that was great. Oh, I mean, beautiful stuff. Love everything you've been showing, and everybody. What's your Instagram handle if people want to go follow you and check you out?
Bobby.Cerda. So my name, BOBBY.CERDA. My website is just bobbycerda.com. I wouldn't encourage you to go look at my website because I haven't updated in like 2 years, nothing serious at least, but I am in the process of updating it right now. So it's bobbycerda.com.